Adjusted too.
Hey everybody, welcome to another, Saturday live stream mailbag from myself, Samson Folk. These have been received pretty well. They seem pretty popular. I'm glad that people want to listen, and I've been trying to get good guests. Have a great one today. Keeks, not stat head, stat Keeks. She is taking over the branding. Her stat query has become so popular with everybody. Her analysis so beloved. And even though I call her a propagandist, everyone else seems to think that she is.
I mean, I can only frame things a certain way so many times.
We're all propagandists in a way, you know. We just it's about being honest about it. But we're here to talk, I think, somewhat about the stats that have defined the Raptors season so far, and then contextualizing them. And who better to talk about stats and contextualize them with than Keeks? And so, Keeks, as far as like what you think, and of course we're going to answer mailbag questions, and if anybody has something interesting in chat, feel free to pop in. But as far as the stats team wide that you think help define the early season for the Raptors, what are you noticing and what are some trends that really make them stand out specifically in certain areas?
I think the just overall hustle and like effort and second effort and third effort that they put in on multiple positions in a row throughout the season or for the first 6 games, that's not really something that we saw last year. I guess we did, but not later on.
Yeah.
When the actual tank, and obviously in a rebuild year where they're not really trying for wins, we take these little wins where we can. So digging real deep here to start is like they've been down by 20 plus points in 3 of their last 4 games, which like last year when I was tweeting those, it was doom and gloom, and I'm not going to make that a thing this year just because it unfortunately comes with where they are. But they've only had garbage time in 4 of 6 games they've been down by 20 or more. Only had garbage time in 3. So they lost by 30 to the Cavs to open the season, and they haven't lost by double digits. Well, I guess against Minnesota, but that's it.
Yeah.
Everything
Well,
else
so
in single digits.
it sounds like they battle back and they battle back before the game. Like the game gets out of hand in quotations, but
Very
then
early.
they bring it back into their hands. They're very capable hands. And a lot of what's motivating that is the hustle statistics. And feel free to, give I know you had a tweet, I guess
I did.
Wednesday
The
during the day about their hustle stats overall, but I'll contextualize this with like there is a bit of a return to it's not the Nick Nurse era, but the Raptors are number one in the
similar
NBA
style.
in offensive rebounding percentage at 39%. They run out in transition a lot. They're trying to create a lot of havoc. They're trying to create a lot of turnover. It is reminiscent of that style, but as far as the hustle stats, like deflections, like all that, what do you have for us?
So I think something that I had coming into the season was like the competitive losses thing. Obviously, like they've used 5
Mm-hmm.
different starting lineups in 6 games. Last year, 42 of their 82 games were decided by single digits, and that was like the easiest way to contextualize competitive losses because they were 15 and 27 in those games. So the 42 games were 6th most in the NBA. And obviously, they had a losing record in those. In like other hustle stats categories, the deflections has stood out early, especially I guess not as much yesterday, but in general. Today they're averaging 16 deflections per game, which is like 11th or 12th, I think.
And then
On Wednesday it was like top 5 in the NBA.
yeah, that makes sense.
Steals, they were. I'm looking up a lot of these on the fly right now. Sorry, guys.
No, that's okay. You look those up, and I'll kind of. So, not only are they, a team that's getting after it on the offensive glass, not only are they a team that's now trying to prioritize deflections, but they're a team that wants to turn other teams over. They're a team that now, with Davion Mitchell and Jamal Shed playing a lot of minutes at the point guard position, they have to put pressure there. And a huge linchpin of that on the back end, and now the leader in minutes per game for the Raptors is Jakob Poeltl. It's created a unique context that everybody is stepping into something new. It's not just Gradey who's playing in a new environment. It's not just RJ Barrett with a bunch of pick and roll ball handling possessions. It's Jakob Poeltl playing like 7 more minutes per game than he's ever played in his career before. And if you had asked, him before the season. I know he had that like not attacking the championship comment, which was candid and good in my opinion.
He was
But
being truthful.
yes, I love when players are truthful, but it helps convey how important he is to what the Raptors are doing. And also we'll get to talk a little bit about, I suppose, the Jonathan Mobo minutes. But actually
Yes.
I do want to, if you want to give us the stats you've looked up, and then we'll move on to, I think, Grady and RJ, who have been super, super interesting.
On Yap?
On, I guess, the team-wide stuff, hustle stuff.
Okay, so hustle-wise, so they were third in deflections on Wednesday. It's like dropped a little bit. Averages and the ranks changed so fast on that side.
Mm-hmm.
They have run the most. Let me see if that's still the same.
Yeah,
They've run the most of any team in the NBA.
Yeah.
Which is, I think, is more just to say of like, again, like hustle and effort. Last year they were 24th worst, 27th in the NBA in rebound rate. I'm not going to use rebound per game. I'm just going to use rebound rate on this one. They're first in the NBA this year. Something that they have like said they wanted to improve on. Obviously, the defensive rating is not good, but it's been closer than what we would have thought it would be.
Yeah, they've changed exactly how they achieve. They changed how they achieve things, but that doesn't mean that you achieve them at a different rate. Like the road is different. It's like, do you ever watch Man Tracker on like the Outside Living Network? That was a platinum television show. Like Josh and Trey and I will talk about that till the cows come home. Basically, the conceit, the premise is two people start out on foot with a compass and a map, and they have to walk through the bush and the wilderness to get to this spot. And then there's a guy wearing a cowboy hat, could have been Bruce Brown, and he's on a horse, and they start like however many hours ahead, and then he goes and he tracks them, and their job is to not be caught, and he has a lasso and everything. It's nuts. It was incredible. However, a lot of what the players had to decide is like, are we going to take the easy path that allows us to get there quickly, that is also accessible by horse, or are we going to trudge through the forest so that a horse, the man tracker, can't come get us? That's the Raptors. They have to get to somewhere. Yes. And right now, I think that they're trudging more than they were otherwise. You know what I mean?
They're laying a foundation that will hopefully like be their identity going forward. Obviously, a lot of the lineups they're using aren't lineups they'll use in actual competitive environments. They're not going to have 3 rookies and a second-year player who's played 8 games on at the same time in a real game, unfortunately. I mean, I guess that was real, but that's the gist of it. With like, even like Yak, I think for me is the leading by example type here with so he's played 35 minutes in 3 straight games. That's the he's leading the Raptors in minutes this year.
Yep.
He's never averaged more than 29 minutes a game in his career. 3 straight double-doubles, tied for the second longest streak in his career, which 3 is not a lot of consecutive double-doubles, so that's saying something to me. The Raptors are committing 15.8 turnovers per 100 possessions with him on the court. Sorry, guys. 18.6 with him off. He's like been a stabilizing force.
Yes. So with Yak, the interesting thing, and he brought it back around a little bit, but they're 5 points per possession worse with him on the court defensively. And that might speak to, you know, how the other guys like Jonathan Mobo, when he comes on, he gets to bring
Sorry, guys.
It's okay. He gets to bring a significant amount of, I guess, punch and energy in just 17 minutes per game. And Jakob is a guy who, you know, they're 24 points better on offense with him out there, which is obviously a whole bunch, a ton. And as you mentioned, like a stabilizing force. That's what the Raptors need, is him to kind of like settle everything down, work through their options, be a handoff hub. The biggest, I think, the guys who benefit
Sorry.
The guys who benefit the most, I think, from Jakob's presence on offense are RJ Barrett and Grady Dick. And those are the guys I want to talk about, I think, more than anything. And since we had like quite a few questions about how RJ was operating and what that would look like. And particularly pertaining to the pick and roll, I've gotten some. So here's the big
Okay.
RJ Barrett banner. I have fun stats. So RJ Barrett has been awesome. He's averaging 28 points, 8 rebounds, 28 points, 8 assists, 5 rebounds on 62% true shooting. That's absurd. He's averaging basically 19 drives a game and scoring 50% on those drives. He's averaging 3.3 assists on those drives. And the thing here is he passes out of his drives at a similar percentage to Scotty. However, his assist percentage on his drives is almost twice as high as Scotty's, which speaks to how much farther into the paint RJ is getting than Scotty was, the types of layups he's able to provide, because they're not even necessarily shooting threes off of his drives very well this year. And RJ is taking 55% of his shot attempts at the rim, just bludgeoning the rim repeatedly. And to even hammer home this point more, as far as the ball handling in the pick and roll, he's used quite a few possessions over the last couple games. He didn't against the Nuggets that much until Scotty got injured and he had to score in overtime. And he did score in overtime in the pick and roll. But last season with the Raptors, and remember, he was great with the Raptors last year, 0.905 points per possession as a ball handler. That is so aggressively middle of the road that you would hardly want to pay attention to it. This year, through 3 games, the gaudiest 1.341, which is 98th percentile. Basically, RJ Barrett, through his 3 games, has allowed the Raptors to score on the pick and roll at like an unbelievably high rate. And is this sustainable for inquiring minds? 98th percentile, I don't know. Like Nikola
Especially
Jokic
once everyone comes back.
Yeah, Nikola Jokic's post up, Nikola Jokic's pick and roll as the screener, like those don't reach 1.341 points per possession. So while RJ I don't think can keep that up, the amount of extra dribbles he's using, the fact that he keeps getting deeper and deeper, he's not going to take every opportunity once everybody's back to like work on his own craft and get to his spots and everything runs through him. But I do think that we are going to see, and it's entirely possible to my eye, that RJ Barrett makes the jump from not 0.905, but probably into the above average pick and roll ball handler stage of things, which is above a point per possession, which really makes it a tenable, useful, and valuable play type for the Raptors. That's what I think happens this year. And I think the main reason for why RJ is able to do this is a lot of what made him successful as a cutter, a lot of what made him successful as a driver is that resiliency that he has, his last step that he's able to finish on. He's brought so much to the Raptors in that way. And now it's just starting, instead of a handoff, it's starting with a live dribble. And I think he's doing a great job of using his body to protect and keep defenders at bay. He's mindful of where his guy in the corner is. He's mindful of where his roll man is. And on top of that, Jakob Poeltl is full stop one of the best roll men in the NBA. He's one of the best screeners in the NBA. Jakob Poeltl greases the wheels for pick and roll success. What have you made of RJ's step this year where it's 28 points per game? Like, I don't know if this sticks around, but 28, 8, and 5 is an absurdity.
I think the playmaking consistently is, at least in the last 2 specifically, has been what's been big for me.
So real assists too, by the way, not those fake assists.
Not fake assists. So far this season, the team's assists have been real for the most part.
What do you think of Davion's? A lot of Davion's assists, I feel like, are assist form. Like they're like the Dennis Shooter assists.
My mom always said to not say anything if I don't have anything nice to say.
Okay, go ahead.
So 9 of his 12 assists last night. First of all, he's never had 10 assists in a game before. 9 was his career high. I think he tied it last year at one point with the Raptors, but has never had more than 10. He scored or assisted on 47 of their 74 points in the second half, which is a pretty high percentage for like one player. I think it's like 65%, 63. Yeah. That step, I think, is something new for him, something that we haven't really seen. So definitely the playmaking.
Go ahead.
And the scoring efficiency. The scoring efficiency he's had last year, but not to this level. Obviously, he just has the ball more. But
Yeah. And also, like last year, RJ played a lot of games on a broken down Raptors team. He didn't play
yes,
necessarily with that much of Scotty. So it's not as simple as just saying, well, Scotty's gone, so he finally gets to do this. It's like, no, he played a lot of games last year without Scotty. And obviously
yeah,
RJ had he missed an extended amount of time for the passing of his brother as well. But the stuff that he's brought to the table this year is he's been incredible. In chat, Coco says, "Are there stats on when RJ is able to score using his right?" I looked at that last season, and I looked at all of his drives, and he was
yeah,
scoring at a higher points per possession going to his right, and he actually goes to his right and finishes on the right side of the rim more, or sorry, he finishes on the right side of the rim more often than he finishes on the left side of the rim. However, that doesn't mean he's using his right hand. He still didn't finish with his right hand the majority of the time. It's in the minority
that's
by
correct.
some measure. And I haven't through 3 games, I haven't went and watched all of that or looked for that. So I don't have the numbers yet, Coco, but I assume at some point in the season I'll probably look that up. So
There'll be
that
a tweet.
it probably would make it a video, like a part 2, can RJ only go left,
Yeah,
something like that. But yeah, so that's something we'll look into. Way L says RJ's offense looks so smooth now. He
yeah,
attacks so well and is able to recognize passing opportunities. Yeah, I also, this was a piece I wrote last year where it was talking about how RJ's passing had improved so much with the Raptors, and the fact that like his he started passing out of drives at a healthier percentage. He started creating more what I call advantage assists, which is, Keeks and I were talking about it just a little bit earlier, but like fake assists. Um, RJ is a guy who, because of how deep he gets into the paint, he's going to create a lot of rim pressure, and he's going to create a lot of turnover and movement in the defense. And that turnover and movement in the defense creates more layups for his teammates, but also creates a lot of the baseline skip passes because he brings the guy in from the weak side to tag the roller, and then you skip to the corner. Basically, RJ is creating corner threes and layups for his teammates. And at 55% of his own shots coming from the rim, he's just making this big old sexy shot chart. And this should get like ostensibly much better when the Raptors are a team that can shoot, because
when
they
they
don't.
have more, when they're not 27th, I think, in 3-point percentage and
Yeah.
horrific on corner threes. So something kind of cool, I think, here. So in 26 games with New York last year, RJ averaged like 24 and a half passes, 2.4 assists off of his passes.
Yep.
I don't have his teammates' field goal percentage here, but I will get that later. With the Raptors, 38 passes per game, 4.1 assists. Through 3 games this year, 51 passes per game.
Yep.
Leading to 7.7 assists.
So this is a really big thing, because last year with the Raptors, he had the same amount of touches per game basically as Kelly Olynyk. Like, their Scotty, IQ are the guys who touched the ball so much last year. Massive, massive gap. Then you get to like Jakob, Kelly, RJ.
Yeah.
RJ, despite being the guy who was the Raptors' leading scorer, despite being the guy who was their leading driver, despite being part of barbecue, right? BBQ, he did not get the same type of offensive treatment as
No.
IQ and Scotty. He got less, and he just did everything with less.
It's
And
like he said
now,
about cutting, right?
yeah, exactly. And what IQ said, he's like, RJ loves to score the ball. If he can
Exactly.
cut to score, that's when he'll cut, which was really funny, because when I was talking to IQ about that, and he told me that, it was like, yeah, if RJ can cut to score, that's when he'll cut. And then when I talked to Grady about cutting, Grady was like, well, most of the time I'm not cutting to score. I'm trying to change the defense or whatever. But to go back to this point and just really this RJ stuff, RJ was doing so much with so little, and now he has more, and he's just doing so much. Of course, there's, for people who are listening to this, the podcast version, I guess, like Sunday, we'll see what happens against Sacramento.
Tonight,
And this
yeah.
will probably be a segment on the YouTube channel, this conversation, but we'll see what happens tonight. But like, congrats to him, man. I think he's been tremendous. And I do kind of want to talk about, unless you have any other interesting RJ statistics, we could move on to Grady Dick, who, geez,
The only other little fun fact is he hasn't had back-to-back 30-point games since 2022. So first time as a Raptor and like first time in a little while.
Yeah. People in chat were asking about RJ's defense. I will talk about RJ's defense with Trey. You'll have it Thursday morning, and we'll do a little bit more of a dive on RJ's defense. Keeks told me, she's like, I don't talk about that. I'm not interested. I'm only interested in offense.
Talking about nice things only.
Exactly. So Grady Dick, I found like an awesome stat, and I know you're the stat girl, but I'm gonna try and be a stat girl too. So
Samson
Grady
Folk.
Dick, yes, Grady Dick is taking more guarded jump shots than 99% of the NBA. So that doesn't mean like
That's
in
crazy.
volume, but the percentage of his jumpers that are guarded per synergy is higher than 99% of the NBA. So that's Grady. And I've been saying this the whole year, and it was clear in preseason. It's been clear through 6 games. Grady Dick's shot diet is the hardest on the Raptors. And I think one of the harder shot diets in the league. He's just like, he's been incredible as a shot maker. And I've talked about this to death. I've done video essays on it. I talked about it with Will last night. I talked about it with Trey a million times. I'll talk about it till the cows come home. And we're going to talk about it again. But just to convey how good he's been, he's taking all the hardest shots.
Yeah.
He's scoring at all 3 levels. He's scoring 21 points per game on 61% true shooting. And everybody who would have thought Grady is a guy who people need to provide him with shots. He's the shooter. They have to get him open. Nope. He doesn't need to be open. You put him in a phone booth, he's going to run around like a crazy person up the walls, and he'll find a way to score. And he's doing it at all 3 levels. I have other statistics. You have other statistics. Go ahead. Let's hear it. I want to hear what you've got.
I guess I have some to contextualize both his scoring and what he's been doing in the last couple games and just how he's scoring. So last year, about 26% of his points overall came from corner threes. You remember there was a whole thing about him. I think he was like 4th in the NBA in corner threes shooting percentage after the break.
Yeah, he shot 49%, something like that.
Something like that, like 40. Yep. Yeah. So 26% of his points came from corner 3 last year. Obviously, they're chasing him off that line. He's actually not taken very many at all this year. I think.
Well, they don't even, and we'll go back to your point.
They don't take a lot of corner threes.
But they also don't position him in the corner anymore. Like I have this book, my little journal with all the Raptors, all the Raptors plays drawn in, and a lot of the stuff from last year is showing that IQ is being positioned above the break and Grady's being stationed in the corner. But now, especially with IQ gone, but even when IQ was there, and Grady has completely taken over all of the above the break stuff that Gary Trent was doing. Yes. He's taking over all of the above the break stuff that, like even Dennis and IQ were doing. And he's murdering the numbers. Like he's killing it. There's a play, I'll have a video essay out on it, but it's the flare screen for Grady into Spain leak. They're scoring, I think, like 80% field goal on it. Every time they run it, Grady scores. Or the defense over adjusts to him and his gravity, and there's a layup for somebody else. Like his gravity above the break to tease and pull defenses is truly, truly special. And it's because this is why I wrote about this last year. Maybe in March, I was like, it seems pretty clear Gary's time with the Raptors is up. We can look at the way that the roster is built, that it's coming. We see it. And I like Gary. One of the only players who was brave enough to compliment my fashion. But Grady, there was a big vacuum for him to fill, and he is filling it to an unbelievable degree. But yes,
his shots not falling super well so far.
37% from 3.
Yeah, and about 37.8% from above the break. Not to his corner 3 levels from last year, but everything else is obviously much better. He's 16 for 28 in the mid range. He's shot 40% there last year. So 26% of his points came from corner threes last year, only 4.8. Like he's only taken 5 corner threes all season.
Yep. And I'll also say for listeners, corner threes are very efficient. However, they're far less important to be able to hit than above the break threes. And this is evidenced by Grady is shooting 71% on his drives this year.
Yes.
You can't get that type of efficiency driving from the corner because you can't operate going to both sides of the rim. You have way less of the floor to work with. It also means you can't play make as well. When you're a great above the break shooter, when you draw big closeouts above the break, not only does it allow you way more avenues to score at 3 levels, which Grady has been doing, it also allows you way more opportunities to play make. But from a team building perspective, it allows you to play lesser shooters in the corner where they might succeed. So, for example, like if Ochai, great example,
Ochai.
RJ, like just the pairing of Grady and Ochai and the pairing of Grady and RJ is like, if Grady's above the break and you want to run something and teams overhelp, then it can go to RJ. Then it can go to Ochai. But also in the RJ example, they bring RJ out of the corner into like a Miami or Chicago action where he's curling to the basket now. And this is Grady. This is what they scored on last night is like the keeper play where Grady passed it into Jakob and Jakob kept the handoff, and then RJ came back around, and then Grady went and twirled around Jakob. Like RJ came out of the corner. If they overplayed it, they could have released to RJ in the corner. If they underplayed it, they could have gotten Grady a 3. And this is like the value of operating above the break. 4%, 4.5% of his shots or points coming from the corner. To me, huge win.
Growth. Huge growth.
Growth from Dick. And I mean, it's just something we've been wanting to see for so long. So, Grady, I have him. Synergy had him at 9 for 12 on mid-range jumpers this year, as far as like in the regular season.
Yep.
That doesn't include floaters. Like he's had a couple like insane floaters he made over Rudy Gobert and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But as far as, just jumpers, his ability to get that shot off, incredible. 9 of 12. And like, again, you still have to counter or account for he's the guarded jump shots. He's like, he's not open on a lot of these. He's just gunning. Go ahead.
So I'm just going to look up again, obvious NBA.com tracking data is a little
there can be stuff, yeah.
But it is like what is used. So 41. Oh, I just clicked the wrong button. Sorry.
No, you keep looking, but yeah, like the Grady stuff is really interesting when we think about it from a team building aspect and how this allows the Raptors to be creative and how they want to use RJ and how they want to use IQ and how they want to use Scotty. And it will allow so many opportunities to them to build out certain types of sets. And we've seen it like this year that most of the most interesting things that the Raptors run feature Grady. Maybe he's not the focal point, but he is one of the most dangerous parts of the action when defenses respond to him. And that's because his actions can go any which way. He can be driven to the corner for a shot. He can be pushed middle for a shot. He can hit the above the break if he needs to. He can go all the way to the rim. Like that diversity of outcomes makes him a perfect player for set actions. It makes him a perfect late game player. And it makes him, heading into the future when the Raptors are ready for that as a team, a really great playoff scorer. That resiliency is really what helps motivate that. And it's also, I think, evident in RJ's game that both of these guys, their willingness to like work past one read, one progression into the next, work past another, they are not going to settle for anything. That's kind of what's been really exciting about watching these guys.
The extra hustle, extra effort on every possession, definitely. So Grady's, according to NBA.com, 65% of his twos this year have been with a defender within 2 to 4 feet, shooting 54.5% on those, which is pretty good. If I was to contextualize that even further, I'm going to say 25 attempts this early in the season.
Sure.
30. He'd be like top 15 in the NBA on with the defender between 2 and 4 feet.
This
Which
is
is pretty
what
sick for a second year.
that is, and this is what Josh Codanera, who's the world's best scout.
Yep.
I follow him, listen to him before he gets hired in the NBA at Josh Scoutum on Twitter. I'll put it in the chat, but this is what he talked about when he was breaking down Grady's shot mechanics, and we were talking about how he's not a one motion shooter, and most tremendous 3-point shooters are one motion shooters because it has less points of failure in the jump shot mechanics. However, Grady's a 2-motion shooter, which makes him, that means more stuff can go wrong when he's shooting, which is probably why he's pretty hot and cold from 3.
Yes.
And being a 2-motion shooter with that sling, like he gets it to here and then he starts going. A lot of guys build from here and push through as a 1-motion jump shooter. However, Grady is a guy, there's 2 motions, and it means he gets to rely on his touch more in the mid-range. It means that his body can be turned this way. He just has to square his shoulders to the rim, where a lot of guys have to square their whole body. Grady just has to square his shoulders. Like we've seen it on quite a few shots. Like he'll be running this way, the rim is that way. He'll just turn and fire. That's why he's so good in the mid-range. And we've seen his touch at the rim. Insane finishes, English. He had the 2 moon ball floaters over Rudy Gobert. Like his touch is really at the next level. And that 2-motion jumper allows him to access that. And it really allows him to be like a great, great mid-range shooter. Most of the best mid-range shooters we've seen ever of all time, 2-motion shooters. Most of the best 3-point shooters of all time, 1-motion shooters. Grady is the level of shooter. He's trying to marry those things. And that's why, do I think he'll be like a 40+% 3-point shooter for a long time? I don't know if it'll be that. But I think he'll be like a super huge, multi-purpose, offensive juggernaut who scores everywhere. He has the size to finish at the rim. He has the touch. And he's so adaptable. He'll have hot, like we see it during every game. I see everybody on the timeline like, oh, Grady's not shooting. And then he hits 3 in 5, like 3 threes in 5 possessions. You're like, oh, damn, okay, I'm back in. It's going to run hot and cold with his 3-point jumper, I think. And we'll get better over time. But that multi-purpose use, I think, is like, geez, that's something I really, really love to see. Do you want to answer some of these mailbag questions that were asked of us?
Sure.
Okay. We will pepper in stats when we can. I'm going to be self-indulgent here. Let me set the scene, Keeks. So, what you guys don't know is that Keeks and I are both huge fans of pleated pants, slacks, trousers. We both wear them quite often. I'll be at the game tonight. I will have a pair of pleated pants on. I don't know if the case will be the same for you.
I will also probably be wearing a pair of pleated pants.
Okay.
Oh my God. Say that 5 times fast.
Pleated pants, pleated pants, pleated pants, pleated pants, pleated pants, pleated pants. We will be pleated pals. So here's the thing. I also take my camera to the game and my little Fujifilm camera, and I snap pictures.
Rico.
You do now. Yes, that's correct. And I snap little photos. I also am a big time rock climber. Now, if all those 3 things sound like, yeah, I've seen Samson wear pleated pants. I've seen Samson rock climb. I've seen Samson's photography. Guess who does all those 3 things? Now, mutual unbiased friend, Esfandiar.
Very biased. Extremely biased.
He seemed to think that I was
incorrect.
The impetus for Keeks starting all 3 of these things.
Incorrect. Absolutely incorrect.
I think, what did he... he was like, you're like the female Samson. I can't remember.
No.
That's what he said. Something to that effect.
No.
What, and this is what S asks. He said, settle the debate. Who started wearing the big pants first? How do you defend yourself in this matter?
It was me. It was me. I have video evidence of me wearing pleated pants in 2022.
That's not even that early.
I bought my first pair of pleated pants.
You're on record?
Before I knew.
You're on record?
Before I knew Samson. Yes,
okay, you're on record as a 2022.
I was not influenced by you.
You're on record as a 2022 pleated pants girly.
Yes.
And I do respect that. However, I've had pleated pants for longer than 2022.
It doesn't count because I did not know Samson in 2022.
Okay. So The question here from S is, who started wearing the big pants first? Will you shake on that? As I had them before 2022. I'm the pleated pants king.
Fair. If the question is exactly who started wearing them first,
yes,
fine.
Okay, now for the rock climbing and the picture taking. You mean to tell me you didn't like I started rock climbing and you were like, oh, I've never seen this before.
I had been looking for active hobbies for probably like 5 to 6 months. I tried so many different things.
Like?
The Pilates, boxing. I did a little bit of tennis came later. But Pilates, boxing, not my thing. It was actually S. Thank you. You're very biased.
Who put S on? Who put S on?
Who said, Keeks, you should try rock climbing. And said, you would really like it.
I put him on.
Listened to S. I was not influenced by you here. It was S.
So I'll say this. Before S told you about rock climbing, you saw me rock climb.
I saw many people rock climbing. Everybody was rock climbing.
Well, okay, whatever.
It's one of the most popular hobbies.
No, it's not. It's not that popular.
It's pretty popular. I had a waitress. No,
it's more popular
a server
now.
at Campuccino's tell me to start rock climbing. Way before we were talking about active hobbies, he said, "Go rock climb." He's a professional rock climber, actually.
His forms must have been like crazy. That's the crazy thing. When you see like a rock climber, the forearms, they like ripple the muscles. Coco's in chat says, wait, who put Samson on though? Josh Codanera put me on to rock climbing. We were in Mexico and he kept going up to like every piece of rock face.
Actual
like,
rocks?
Yeah. Yeah, rookie. And he kept going up to like the actual rock face and being like, oh yeah, this would be great. And like trying to do all that kind of stuff. And then he was like, we'll go rock climbing when we're back in Toronto. And then we did. And then I was obsessed with it. And God bless rock climbing. Very, very fun. So we got asked a few questions about rock climbing, even so much so Chelsea Late said, talk about rock climbing.
Oh my gosh.
So we have satisfied that aspect of it.
Also, the photography was also me first.
We agree on that. You started, now you revived it after, because you took a hiatus.
No hiatus.
Yes. Okay. Anyway.
I just did.
Go ahead.
I've been taking photos since I was a little kid.
Everyone has been taking photos since they're a little kid.
Camera since I was a little kid. Maybe not the Fuji, but the Fuji was also from my cousin. So, just saying.
Just for the listener, have I ever had to borrow a piece of gear from you? Yes or no?
Some crazy person on TikTok posted a video about how Fujis are the it camera a year after I bought mine. So I was looking for a smaller lens and everything was sold out because some crazy person said it was the best camera.
So you had to borrow my lens.
I had no choice. I had to test it before I bought it.
So from Ochai Lottie, Nassim Ali says, if you put a free copy of Microsoft Excel, a sunset photo album, and 10 pairs of black sweatshirts / pants on the top of a V4 wall, would Keeks scale it in under a minute? What if you were climbing for your life? What is the grade you think you can achieve?
I was climbing for my life. I think if I tried really hard, maybe a V4 or a V5. So my gym uses colors, so I have to change it, but a blue tape.
Blue tape. The climbing for the life. I've never had to climb for my life.
No.
Like I've said it many times, like I'm going to give my life to this climb, but I never truly have.
Yeah.
I'll give you in under a minute. Most climbs take less than a minute. So you know what? I give her a fair chance at it. Here's same time cough. So from Kevin, who I know is a rock climber himself and has offered outdoor climbing to me if I ever come through Vancouver. Kevin says, for basketball, which of the rookies do you think will get the short end of the stick once our regular rotation guys return? Is there someone who could replace a regular? And then what are your thoughts on bike lanes and then climbing? Which GTA gym do you like the most? So here's the thing.
Okay.
Bike lanes, awesome.
Yes.
If there's somebody in here who thinks that bike lanes are bad for traffic, I hate to tell you, but all of the data across the world, bikes help traffic. You need other forms of transit to help ease the
reduce
amount
traffic.
of congestion from cars. Cars are bigger than bikes, much bigger. It's harder to move a car out of the way than a bike. Bikes are very adaptable. Traffic, like even so much so that like they drive emergency vehicles in Europe, like fire trucks, fire engines, ambulances. They drive them on the bike lanes because they make theirs smaller. And guess what? You're like, you hear the siren going, you have to move out of the way if you're a car. Sometimes you can't do that. With a bike, you just move. So there's a lot of infrastructure stuff that I think would benefit greatly from bike lanes, from people riding bikes. I love public transit. I take it all the time. I'm a firm believer in it. I think it is a great public good. Done preaching on that. Who is going to be out of the rotation? I'll go first. I think Jamal Shed is going to really lose minutes.
I think the Raptors will probably run an 10 or an 11-man rotation the whole year. So like obviously Battle, Carton, Champchet are not going to see very many minutes with the main team. So then it comes down to Shed.
Yeah. I think
unless he can up his game a little bit more and take Davion's spot.
Yeah. Which I don't think will happen because I think, and I don't want to be too hard on Jamal. I think he's been really, like we just watched last year, Marquise Noel was like this small, diminutive point guard who was going to try and punch up at, you know, the main roster and do all that kind of stuff. And it just never landed for Marquise. However, Jamal has already like made way more of an imprint on it.
Yeah.
And I think his defense, it's very punchy, but there's still a lot of breakdowns there. He has to get adjusted to the NBA speed. And offensively, like when 50% of your shots come from the short mid range and are like you're going left and you're pushing right push shot, it's tough to be it's tough to make a big change offensively to help your teammates. And I don't want to be too hard on Jamal. He still has time to, spread his wings, grow his game. He's not Kyle Lowry, but Kyle Lowry was a bad shooter from three coming out of college. Kyle Lowry was a dogged, small defender. Jamal has a lot of that intangible stuff. And if anybody can, develop a three, it's going to be a hardworking player like Jamal. Yeah. We'll see what happens. But I think DJ is going to get a lot of time with the 905, obviously. Yep. Same with Battle. Champchet hasn't sniffed anything. He's
not going to see anything.
He's not losing anything, basically. No. He's just, returning as is. But Jacoby exists higher up on the depth chart than obviously Jamal does, Davion does, IQ does, Grady does. It's just tough to imagine a situation. And even with, there's going to be some lineups this year where Scotty is like the de facto point guard or the ball handler, and it doesn't make much sense for Jamal to be out there. So that's kind of who I think will get the short end of the stick. But that doesn't mean he's not an NBA player. That doesn't mean he's not doing like good stuff. It's just the Raptors. That's why the start of the year has been cool. Is a lot of guys get more run, and you get data, and you get to watch film, and you get to learn this is how they look like at this level.
Yeah,
I think it's Jamal is the guy who's going to be the one who loses out on that.
I'm just looking at my roster sheet real quick. So even if they run 11 guys, IQ's hurt, Scotty's out, Bruce, and Kelly. So when they're back, and if they are all healthy, Bruno is not in my top 10 rotation.
Poor guy. He's gotten a tough sell from the fan base. I think people are like, every time he checks in, they're like, oh God, not this guy.
It's really hard to watch.
Yeah, he's not very good.
One of the notes that I had when I had nothing else to say about Bruno was, on a non-guaranteed deal, can be waived at any time.
That was crazy how they restructured his contract, hey?
I mean,
I was surprised he agreed to that, but I guess maybe they were like, hey, you're gonna get nothing, but if you let us do this, there's gonna be something we can do down the road where you get like $330,000 or something.
I don't think he had very many other options on the table, so it made sense that way. Like
Uh,
Chris Boucher probably also
he
loses a
could
little bit of
lose a
minutes.
spot. He could lose a spot if like Kelly and Bruce come back in and Bruce is like
Yeah.
actually like, hey.
Hey, I'm
But Chris
here.
is gonna be around for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. They like the team has been so destitute with injuries, but the depth chart fills out pretty quickly if guys are healthy.
Pretty fast, exactly.
But as
Like,
we've
I don't even
seen,
know
like
who
they
else I
could,
would drop on this.
yeah, they could be walking guys in and out all year though. Like RJ came back and Scotty got injured. It's just like it could be a revolving door. I hope it isn't. But my favorite GTA gym that I like the most, Boulder Park is my favorite. I've been to quite a few gyms at this point now, but Boulder Park is my favorite. They set a whole bunch of dynamic boulders.
A static girl.
I love the
Static
big
climbs.
jumps and the big like campusing and all that kind of stuff. That's great. So
Well,
yeah, Kevin, if
when
you're
I
ever in
started
Toronto,
when I started climbing, I was really afraid of not super. I was afraid of heights, so I did top rope first before I did bouldering to conquer that little fear of heights. But that still means I'm not meant for dynamic climbs. Also, because I still want my nails, so I'm a casual climber. I really enjoy it, but Rockheads for me, I think, where I started and where I've been is my favorite one. I've been to 3 so far.
Yeah, that's which I do like. I'm like, oh, should I get a membership there so I can go after practices or whatever? But we'll see. But yeah, Kevin, if you're ever in Toronto, I recommend Boulder Park. From Shai Halud Alexander, that's Nabil. He says, for the spreadsheet sickos, drop your favorite Excel formula / function. I don't really use Excel like that, so you have to put me on.
I got a few. This is very sicko.
Yeah, let's hear it.
Excel sicko, but there's one called like let. At least in my version of Excel, I don't know if it exists in everything. Basically, it lets you name a bunch of things, name a bunch of formulas, and then use the name repeatedly, which saves time and processing power.
Wow.
Very nerdy of me.
Did you notice that I put the Excel spreadsheets logo in the thumbnail of this episode?
No, stop.
Yeah, the top left corner. From Freddie Rivas says, what stats do you wish were more accessible for the average fan? Is there like a dream stat where you're like, it's so commonly misunderstood, but it's also proprietary? Like so many people talk about X and Y. Yeah, people talk about like X and Y, and it seems like there's a lot of things that people get misled on for stats.
Yes.
Like personally, I think while I like to be able to quickly go to nba.com/stats and cite like play type data, like pick and roll data, RJ, he's been incredible. But that data, the public version of it, doesn't include passes. Yeah. Like on nba.com, the free version of it all, it doesn't include passes. It's just scoring. And as we well know, and Raptors fans should be very aware of this because Scotty was a very ho-hum pick and roll ball handler as far as scoring. You look at that, or anybody goes and looks, they're like, oh, he's not good. But last year, he was great. He was like 80th percentile as a pick and roll ball handler overall because his passing was so damn good. So you're missing half or more of the play type. To me, as far as like accessible, I wish NBA.com had included passes in their play type data. I think that would a lot of miscommunication, a lot of the Stan battles online where people are going band for band with statistics. I think that stuff would improve maybe, but maybe that's like, I'm thinking about it in too much of like the sicko version. Like, I don't know. What do you what do you get asked about a lot?
Well, first of all, I would love a synergy login if anybody knows how to get one, because no one, unfortunately, it is not as accessible and I haven't been able to use it, but the amount of information on there is obviously incredible.
Yeah. Second Spectrum is king. Like this, but obviously
both are extremely expensive.
Yeah. And Second Spectrum you only get if you're like an ESPN employee or like a team or something like that.
A team employee.
Yeah.
So this isn't proprietary, but I think this is a stat that I wish was more easily understood or easily explained, or there was more access to learning about it, but usage percentage. And like usage rate is always the number one stat that I see people using when they're talking about how players performed or what they were like. And I'm like, you're not like, this is the most misunderstood stat. It's not about who's using the most possessions. It's who's finishing the most possessions, which is unfortunately not very well known.
Yeah.
And then
a
you
good
have
point.
people saying, oh, the usage percentage for this guy is this. I'm like, okay, well, you're misunderstanding it. And you also should not be using like single quarter
Oh, this is
single
from
quarter usage
oh
rates. This is
yeah,
from last
this
year, but like I'm a little bit
yeah.
on the Heat side. I'm doing a little bit of work for the Heat too, and like that's happening on there.
Yeah.
Yeah, very misunderstood stat.
Yeah, I remember that too when you single quarter usage percentage
Cannot be
talking
using.
that is like brain rot.
Yeah,
Brain and also like clutch time usage is like the stats are there, but you're looking at a sample size of maybe
it's
like
small sample
4
size theater.
possessions.
Like
You could be like 4 possessions. Again, as you said, usage doesn't mean like, "Oh, hey, this is what we're trying." Like, it doesn't mean you
it's
had
like
the
this
ball the
person
whole
is
time.
has the ball the whole time. Exactly.
Yeah, that was a huge thing too, is that, like, I would use some film to, like, educate people, and they're like, "Why did this guy get the ball? They should have run a play for, X or Y." There was a famous one between Fred and Pascal where it
Yeah,
was against Phoenix in the early part of 2022, January, when they ran a play for Fred, and Phoenix forced the ball out of his hands. It trickled down to Pascal, and Pascal missed, and people were like, "Why'd they run the play for Pascal?" And I was like, "Well, they ran the play for Fred. Fred had the ball for 70% of the possession. It's just they had to filter somewhere else. This was the
yeah.
secondary play." And it's just like, well, the guy who shot it, that's who they ran the play for. It's like, no, that's just not how it works. But yeah, the usage percentage is a good one. That's why anytime I talk about usage percentage, I also try and incorporate touches. I think that's like nice. The microphone mute. I think touches and usage percentage together is those are very strong. By the way, while we have, I forgot to say it when we had the most people watching, but make sure to like the video. It helps promote it to other people. It helps the channel grow, all that good stuff. And we like Samson and Keeks. We want their stuff to do well, surely. I think I have a couple more questions. This was somebody asked, why is Grady top 3 in the redraft? I will say this, we won't answer it here, but Will and I actually did the like redraft last night
Yep.
at the end of the Hello and Welcome or React Pod episode. So if you want us to kind of run that through before the draft, and largely because of Josh, I said Grady was a top 5 pick to me.
Okay.
I'm on wax in my own work. The day of the draft, I went on Blake's. It wasn't the Raptors show yet. I actually went on Blue Jays Talk Plus to talk about the draft. And I said, like, hey, if they can get Grady at 13, we're all overjoyed. They ended up getting Grady. I think Grady is top 5. I don't think top 3 in this draft. I really like the Thompson twins. Obviously,
Yep.
Wembanyama is number 1 with a bullet. Derek Lively is also really interesting. Like there's so many great players out of this draft, but Grady is certainly not 13th. And
No.
and
No.
saying like
Top
9th,
10.
saying
Top 5
ninth
for sure.
even for me is a little bit, gun shy. So yeah. Oh yeah, here's because you have stats for this. Chrome Phoenix asks, maybe it's more common than I think, but where does Grady rank amongst other players in terms of stat leaps from the first few games of rookie season and second year? You don't have the stat leap, but
No.
you have numbers on where Grady ranks among his draft
So he's
class.
leading all sophomores, and I guess his draft class. Actually, it's the same thing.
Yeah.
He is leading. I mean, I guess a player could have skipped a year, but a la Ben Simmons,
Yeah.
he's leading his draft class in scoring, in made threes. I think in shots too.
Hell yeah.
In
Get him up.
shots. Yep. Uh, through 6 games, but again, it's 6 games.
Mm-hmm.
So very small sample.
Yeah.
The Wizards are obviously like
Bilal.
running through Bilal, and they started
think
3 rookies last night or on Wednesday.
Yeah. Bilal is a guy I would take over Grady for what it's worth.
Okay.
He's one of the guys. But also, that happened too. Trey was like, I'm hearing about this French kid Bilal. When Trey and I talked about Bilal on when we were doing our draft work before the draft, he was mocked as like an early second rounder, and we were like,
Yeah.
the Raptors, they should consider trading back later if like Gradey, if those guys aren't gone, and they could get Bilal in like maybe the back end of the first round or something like that. And then I don't know, 3 weeks later, Bilal was starting to get like lottery buzz, and then he went 7th on the night of the draft, and it was just like, damn, good for him. And it's so obvious. Like you watch Bilal now, and you watch his games then. It was like so much of this is going to translate. And not only is he averaging like 19 points per game, but his and like 5 assists and a whole bunch of rebounds, but he's dynamite defensively. Last question before we get out of here, and I have to go meet Josh for lunch and then cover the Vince game where I'll see my pleated pal over there. From Glamour Girl. Does Mobo's game resemble Garbajosa's? He was one of those vital connectors who had a huge impact on the game. The day he broke his leg was one of the saddest in Raptors history. It was a gruesome injury, and he never really played again. That's true. Actually, they will remain unnamed. This is funny. There were 2 guys in the Raptors media room, a cameraman and an on-screen talent, who were arguing about where Garbajosa broke his leg. And the one guy was saying, no, it was in Toronto. I remember it vividly. And the other guy was saying, no, it was Boston. I remember it vividly. They were both claiming anecdotally, like, no, I watched this happen. And I'm pretty sure it was in Boston, but they were arguing about it. It was awesome. It reminded me of, before the internet and before smartphones and everything, people used to just argue easily verifiable things, and people still do. But like something like this is all you would have to do is like Jorge Garbajosa leg on YouTube,
break.
And you would see like either the Boston arena or the Toronto arena. But it was a throwback because nobody looked anything up. They just argued it. And I was like, man, these are grinders. This is elite.
My claim to fame is that I look things up a lot, mainly because I actually didn't start watching the Raptors until 2013.
Have you ever looked up Garbajosa?
I just looked it up right now. I did not look it up. So I unfortunately wasn't a ball watcher at that time.
What were you doing around that time?
I was in school for TV. That's when I first started. Yeah.
You would have been in like high school or middle school.
But I was but I was working at Rogers TV as like a co-op student. Okay. Most of my like stats purview or stats lens comes from a storytelling for TV or storytelling perspective. Yeah.
Okay. So I will say, if I remember correctly, and I wasn't part of like the Toronto Raptors culture, or like I wasn't like a sicko ball watcher back then because it was like 2006 or whatever. Yeah. But I saw a few Garbajosa games, of course, and I thought Garbajosa was great. He very beloved. He had a couple like good nicknames. The craziest one, Porno, or the porn player. That, and he was also called the Garbage Man. And basically it was his propensity to like do all the like less glamorous things on the court. He was a classic grinder player, a wheel greaser. He was kind of like the introduction to the style of play that Amir Johnson would bring, except Amir was better at like some of the classical big man stuff, and Garbajosa was better at some of the connective play. And keep in mind, I'm not the authority on this. This is like, I've seen like maybe like 14 Garbajosa games that I can recall in my memory of what it looked like. But Mobo as a Garbajosa, I think that's actually not bad. I think he's more athletic than Garbajosa. However, and I think like his screen craft needs to improve, and like, but I don't mind that at all. I certainly like it a lot more than the Precious comp. I think that Garbajosa, I like, they both have long hair, but they're very different players. But I do think Garbajosa is a pretty good comp. Do you have any thoughts on this coming from you've just done a Google search?
I've just done a Google search. All I've confirmed so far is that he broke his leg against Boston, in Boston.
It was in Boston. Yeah. Sorry, it was the cameraman who was wrong. Coco says, I thought we were anti-comps. I am anti-comp. However, like, there's a comp where people want it to be true and they're doing it to like assess the value of a player. And then there's aesthetic comps where I prefer aesthetic comps, I think, because like a lot of times people want to compare a player to be like, look, this is why they're so good. I'm making a value assessment by making this comparison. And I don't like those because players are all so different. And I think that's a silly way to assess value, but it is one of the most common ways people decide whether players are good or bad. Is like, have I seen someone who looks like this before? And this guy's jump shot looks like this guy's jump shot. So actually the totality of their game is similar. It just doesn't work out that way. But I don't mind saying this guy's jump shot looks like that guy's jump shot.
Like that guy's.
Yeah. And I like, Kyrie Irving, Grady Dick, there's a lot of overlap in how they finish at the basket, of course. And that does not mean Grady is as effective as Kyrie.
All right, Samson just said that Grady Dick is the next Kyrie Irving.
No, he's the next Devin Booker. That's
okay.
Yeah. Oh, I'll go there. Coco says my aesthetic comps are to how animals move. Yeah, that's something I love paying attention to in basketball players. It's actually, I think, a large part of why Pascal was so hard for defenses to deal with early on is unique movement patterns for players. And it's why lefties really thrive in a lot of ways, is like unique movement patterns really help you succeed. Even if you're like slow, like Kyle Anderson, players, your brain has chunked so many times. You've, guarded against a closeout or a crossover, but guys who are like more staccato or even like what's the term? I can't think of it right now, but it's like, syncopated. Players who are more syncopated, like there is no rhythm to their game, or it's a rhythm that's unbeknownst to themselves. Players have a tough time accounting for that defensively because so much of defense is finding the beat of how the offense runs, tracking it, meeting it here, being on time, that a player who changes up the rhythm of how they attack, there's a lot of success in doing so.
And randomness in their movement.
Yes. It's the sand walk, the worm walk in Dune, yeah. So that's, I think that's like a podcast. Yeah. You feel good about that? Is there anything?
All the coughs?
That's okay. If you're listening to the podcast version, I will have cleaned it up in post. And if you watch the video version, I'll see you in hell. Is there anything you want to say before we get out of here, Keeks?
No, I think I'm good. Yeah.
You've got no other tremendous stats you want to run off?
I've been trying really hard to be more of a positive person this year and not be negative about a lot of these stats. And sometimes they are negative, but some of the things are in the way that I frame them. So we're going to use the down 20 and back-to-back games as a good thing because they were within 10 in the fourth quarter in both of them.
They battle. They're grinders. That's a wonderful indicator for a basketball team. And once Scotty's healthy, once IQ is healthy, that's when we really get to see what this team is made of. But for now, I mean, it was not that exciting when the Raptors were losing a bunch of games. Like they had a 1-6 stretch or 1-5 stretch last year.
They lost 15 in a row.
Yeah. And it was Grady was averaging 12 and RJ was averaging 21. And this year we're getting treated to team ups for over 30 points. We're getting treated at 28, 8-5 and 21 from Grady. It's just like, and we're getting more Jakob minutes than ever. And it's just like the games are close. Fun stuff is happening. The Raptors are better than their record in my estimation, but the real basketball comes once guys are back and, cross your fingers. But yeah. Benjamin Colpitt says, heck of a podcast. Hell yeah, Benjamin. Thank you for tuning in.
Thanks, Benjamin.
Keeks, thank you so much for being, very, very giving and gracious with your time. I will see you later. Listeners.
I need the pants first.
You agreed at the start that you didn't. You've betrayed yourself.
I'm gonna go with that one instead. Fine.
Wait, there's that great quote that I'm gonna leave everybody with. It was like, I think it was Dostoevsky or either Tolstoy is like, you've betrayed yourself and you did it for nothing. Wait, talk for a little bit. I have to go look this up. Wait, say something to the people. Go say something to the people.
Okay, I have some more fun facts because this one's kind of cool in terms of Yak, who's maybe my top 3 favorite player on the team so far. We had 10 screen assists. Is like screen setting has improved, or maybe the team is just no. I think it's a bit of both. 10 screen assists leading to 22 points for the Raptors last night. 17 in his last 2 games. He's leading the NBA in screen assists, guys.
Awesome. And so, from Dostoevsky, your worst sin is that you have destroyed yourself for nothing. That's right. And I'm levying that against you, Keeks.
No.
Oh, God
This is
bless.
a never-ending argument.
That is such a great quote. What a line. Your worst sin is that you've destroyed yourself for nothing. You've betrayed yourself and you've gained nothing on the other end.
Gonna use that against you at some point.
I mean, I would be honored. Do you know how cool it is to be going through life and it's just like, oh, ho hum, regular life, and someone gives you a Dostoevsky line is like, you've destroyed yourself. This is your worst sin. You've destroyed yourself and you did it for nothing. I would be struck. I'd be like, wow, incredible. I'd be honored to have somebody use such a line on me. I love that kind of stuff. So anyway, thank you to everybody for listening, staying for a little bit of philosophy at the end. Does Dostoevsky count? He's just, to some degree.
Yeah.
Anyway, next week we're talking about Bakunin, the anarchist, with Louis Satzman. Just kidding. At some point we will. But yes, thank you to everybody for listening. Whether you got into this in the morning or at night, from myself and Keeks, we'll see you later. Have a blessed day and goodbye.